Welcome to the video, my precious princesses, my wonderful knights, and fabulous beings. Today I will continue to read Blood Bond by Lady's Days. We are currently on chapter 7. If you haven't heard the other chapters, please do so. If you would like to read this for yourself, I shall leave a link in the description below. You quietly hum to yourself as the evening continued to roll on by slowly. The sounds of the nightlife picking up and the stereotypical sounds of vehicles, people, and general city noises buzzing around your ears. The day had finished off, or rather, would be in another couple hours. You sat in your pajama shorts on the couch in your apartment, slowly fighting off the sleepiness dancing around your eyes. The dull sounds of the television becoming very distant as your head began to sink and your eyes blinked slowly. Sleep was coming soon. You almost didn't believe at first, the sleepy state you were in slowly giving into making things seem more dreamlike than they actually were. However, as the knocking picked up more and the banging became louder, you eventually snapped out of your daze. Stretching, you rose from your spot, slowly making your way toward the door. Yawning, you unlocked it, opening the entranceway without so much as checking to see who was on the other side. A lack of care from a lack of sleep, you supposed. "Oh, did we wake you?" Kirishima spoke, noticing the tired eyes you were attempting to rub away as you realized who had been outside. "Hmm?" You shook your head. "I've been awake, but fighting off some sleep for the last hour. What are you two doing here?" Kirishima looked to his blonde companion, and then back at you. You nodded slowly, offering to let the two inside to speak. Kaminari paced in after the redhead, and as both were inside, you closed the door behind you. The males had already seated themselves near the couches and chairs, and you joined them soon afterwards. It was quiet for a few moments, no one speaking or even adjusting how they were sitting. "Bakugo's not here, is he?" Kirishima finally mumbled, knowing it was much too quiet for the male to be here. "No, he's not," you mumbled, casting a glance once again to the sliding glass door. "He got angry at me a few days ago. Hasn't been back since. I assume he wasn't... Did he say where he was going? Or when he'd be back?" Kaminari asked you, voice dipping low. "No, he just seemed like he was ready to leave," you spoke, sighing. "Guess he doesn't stay in one place for long, huh?" Kirishima and Kaminari exchanged glances, Kaminari nodding to the other male to speak. Kirishima cleared his throat, rubbing a hand behind his head before he opened his mouth once again. "It's like him to leave, but not like him to not say where he's going or how long he'll be gone." Kirishima laughed once. "He's pretty weird. Lets you know when he's irritated, but will leave to cool down before coming back." "So, you think he's still angry?" "No," Kirishima shook his head. "He never stays away for long, and even if he does come back still angry, he at least wants to come back. He likes having a place to go. I think that's why he's staying here and not with the two of us at Ashido." "Well, he certainly didn't make it sound that way," you sighed. "He's complicated," Kaminari mumbled, not sure of the words himself. "He acts like an asshole 'cause it's all he knows how to do. But deep down, Bakugo's a good guy. Ever since he met you, he's slowly letting that part of him out more." You blinked, looking up at Kirishima after his last words. A small burning in your cheeks, the sensation out of place in your usual average skin. You'd only known this vampire for a week, and to suddenly be told he might have been worse than he was now, it was just a bit unsettling. You had noticed, though, and had been trying to figure it out yourself. Figure out why the Bakugo from the first encounter and the Bakugo you had met after waking up seemed like two different people with two different motives. Should we be concerned about him then? Your voice cracked a bit. I mean, if this is unlike him, is it possible something bad happened? Kirishima grasped his hands together and Kaminari sighed deeply, running a hand through his locks. Eventually, the words reached your ears and you felt the gears slowly begin to turn in your head. The blindness of your personal ties and emotions having misguided you and left you unaware of the obvious events that were in no doubt happening. The adrenaline in your legs urged you to get up and dash away to find some solution, to get back out into the field and do something about all this. But instead, you forced it down, no longer interested in such things. So once again, this urge to track down would be replaced with the actions of hospitality. And so, covering up a shocked face, you stood up from your seat. Both males looked at you as you dashed to your kitchen. Your hands flew up to a cupboard, grabbing 3 mugs and starting to make some hot chocolate for the 3 of you. Your fingers acted fast, and sooner than you would realize, you were warming up the milk on the stove, fingers tapping on the counter as you tried to calm down. There's a new hunter in town, and from what we've heard through the grapevine, he's the type to want to erase any creature, whether they've done anything or not. The sentence you had heard slip from Kaminari's mouth fit too well. Bakugo was always revered as the greatest evil your father had ever faced. The words from an egotistical manipulator used to attempt to misguide and corrupt his child. But instead of them, maybe they had corrupted someone else. Someone who had been raised in a home that was much darker than your own. One whose mother was forced to marry and give birth numerous times. An individual who saw himself as your own guardian angel and would protect you at any cost. Someone who had been manipulated by the words of your father. Someone who was in jeopardy of becoming what his mother had become. Todoroki Shoto and Bakugo Katsuki were in line to clash, and unless someone stepped in, one would not walk out of it. Kirishima's voice screamed at you and you jumped. The redhead had rushed forward and into the kitchen with you, turning the burner down as the milk had started to overflow from your overactive worry and thoughts. He looked at you with concerned red eyes, seeing that you were lost and away moments ago. "I'm sorry," you mumbled. "It's okay, it's just a little milk," Kaminari told you. Kirishima opened the freezer door. "It's not a big deal. We'll help you clean up." The incubus began to wipe up the milk, while Kirishima continued to look for some ice to help with the small burn on your finger from the scalding milk having touched you when he pulled you away. But something stopped him, or rather, a lack of something. "Hey," Kirishima turned to look at you. "The blood Ashido brought over a couple days ago. Did Bakugo take it with him?" You shook your head. "He threw it all out after having a couple sips. I guess he wasn't a fan of positive blood." Kaminari ceased cleaning, looking at Kirishima with wide yellow eyes. Kirishima slammed the door shut, instead grabbing your wrist and pulling you toward the hallway once more. "This is bad, man," Kaminari mumbled. "Why isn't he? He knows what happens when..." You fell into Kirishima's side, the male catching you in time to keep you from falling onto your feet. Kaminari was immediately in front of you both, 2 black horns already appearing out of his golden locks. The entire complex had rumbled a moment ago, sending all 3 of you to nearly fall if it wasn't for your quick reflexes. You could barely see in front of you, but the sound of the unlocked sliding glass door told you enough to have an idea of who was back. "Oi!" Why'd you run off so soon? Bakugo's voice was dark and foreboding. I'm not a fan of fucking hide and seek. Bakugo... You blinked as Kirishima covered your mouth, quieting your words. He slowly backed into the bathroom with you. Kaminari in front of you, his hands glowing in a dull black-yellow color. How much energy do you have? Kirishima harshly whispered. Not enough. It's been a while. Kaminari admitted, having struck out a lot amongst those who swung towards men in recent weeks. And to make matters worse, he was always under his true potential because he had yet to do the one thing incubi are known for. Crap! Kirishima harshly bit his lip. The moon cycle is off for me. I'm at my weakest right now, too. What's happening? You pulled Kirishima's hand off finally. What's wrong with Bakugo? Kaminari and Kirishima exchanged glances. The two seemed to be arguing, but eventually decided to bring you into the loop. You were his child, after all. You've heard of a blood craving, right? Kirishima mumbled as Kaminari's magic started to break. Yeah, it's the equivalent of withdrawal for vampires, multiplied by 100, since they possess super speed, strength, and agility. Well, it's extremely like Bakugo is experiencing his first one right now. Kirishima's fist tightened. I don't know how, and I don't know why he hasn't been drinking, but now that he's found us, he's going to stop at nothing to satisfy his thirst. I don't know how much longer I can keep this cloaking shield up, so think of a plan and soon, Kiri. Kaminari gasped, the glowing dark lights flickering quicker and quicker by the second. Kaminari, take them and find Ashido or someone who can help. I'll see if I can restrain Blasti. I'm the only one who is capable of being near him, even with him on an off day. So I can at least buy you time now. Are you crazy? He'll drink you dry! The three of you jumped when the doorknob slowly began to jingle. You held your breath as it slowly opened, revealing a beaten-up, bleeding, and smirking Bakugo in the doorway. He stepped forward, grabbing Kaminari by the throat. Kirishima dashed forward to help his friend. However, it was too late. Bakugo saw the incoming werewolf, possibly expecting this, and without batting an eye, tossed the incubus harshly into the werewolf. Both collided with your bedroom wall and hit the ground with a thud. Kaminari's exhaustion had gotten the better of him, and now, with the gash on his forehead from the collision, was out of commission. Kirishima was below him, struggling to get back up from such a blow. His red eyes pounding to make out the scene after having the air knocked from his lungs. Oi, run! The redhead screamed, and you wasted no time doing just that. Bakugo smirked, following after you slowly down the hallway. More of this game of chase. But now that he had found you again, he sure wouldn't be losing you anytime soon. His prize would be more than caught in another few minutes. Kirishima grunted, looking up to see Bakugo had left, eyes widening that despite the fact that the blood-craving vampire had knocked out one and left another struggling to get up, he was going after the still-moving party. Why was Bakugo only after them? Why? You had made it to your apartment door, jiggling the handle and watching in relief as it opened. Your legs moved, but sooner than you wanted, the despair returned. You screamed as you were dragged back into the apartment and thrown harshly against the wall. Got you. Think you could escape me for long? Bakugo held you by your throat once more, scarlet hues small and focused like a predator. Ready to kill at the right moment. You clawed his hands and arms again. This position is a bit too familiar to your liking. Bakugo chuckled, enjoying the desperate smell you were giving off. Oi, oi, struggle all you want. But I'm going to take it. Got it? He breathed, slamming you down onto the floor, face getting close to your neck. Stop struggling. I'm in no mood for your shit. The hell are you talking about, Bakugo? You gritted out, feeling his strands tickling your face. Calm down and let's talk this through. He pulled away slowly, wanting to take in once more the pathetic, nervous human below him. Their hair spread out amongst the carpet, the red in their cheeks so bright, and the warm feeling of their skin under his palms was delightful. They were perfect, and waiting for him to sink his fangs into them again. I'm in no mood to talk, he spoke, hoping to see the color drain from their face, to truly satisfy the sadistic part of his brain. However, your face instead remained calm. I know, you spoke softly, as something behind him wiped forward and crashed into his back. Bakugo tumbled and crashed into several pieces of furniture, the object that crashed into him having done the same thing. The blonde coughed harshly, regaining his breath, and looked up to see exactly what he had been hit with. Kirishima stood up, shaking violently as he saw what had become of his body thanks to his rough and sudden attack to get Bakugo away from them. He grit his teeth as he pulled out the metal rod from his arm. Crap, he muttered as the blood began to pool from his sleeve, seeing from the corner of his eye a vampire looking at him. Kirishima collapsed against the fireplace, squeezing his arm tightly and trying to keep the crimson liquid inside of himself. His vision was tunneling, and he was beginning to feel the pain from everything set in. The adrenaline and boost of power were fading rapidly, and he had yet to save anyone. But even as the male lost the will to move, his mind still raced when once again Bakugo ignored the easy and obvious target, instead of pacing toward the barely injured person more than a few feet away from him. Dirty trick. Another dirty trick, he growled as he continued forcing his broken body forward. Your father was a bastard, and you used the same damn ones? Bakugo, you dodged his lingering hand, seeing as he was slowly starting to regain more power as he forced himself through the pain he was in. The craving was bad, and he was getting worse. Shut up! He smirked, cornering you into the wall. You said it yourself, so don't get pissy at me for doing what you told me to do. You closed your eyes, fearing what he was getting out and trying to remind you of. What had you told him? Why was he only going after you? Was he seeking revenge again? I told you, hands off! Bakugo was thrown off of you, a gust of wind blowing through your hair, your eyes already shielded from the bright light. You felt someone help to place you down on the carpet gently. You opened your eyes again, seeing that 3 more had joined the party. I thought you said you made a barrier around this place. Todoroki looked to Uraraka. I did! Her eyebrows twitched. I was sure to make sure only those who would not cause them harm could come in. It might be me. You're only as strong as I am, Uraraka. Midoriya gently pushed the girl back. Please, watch over them while Todoroki and I handle Kachan. Deku? Uraraka nodded. Be safe. Uraraka began to kneel next to you, but you shoved her away. She blinked in confusion, but the betrayed look in your eyes told her something else. You were not happy with this. You were not happy with her. Midoriya! Todoroki shouted, lighting an arm, and Bakugo dashed forward. Get away from them! Bakugo screamed, aiming for Midoriya. Midoriya was quick, however, enchanting Bakugo's shirt. However, he wasn't fast enough, and Bakugo's hand collided with Midoriya's chest. Midoriya choked out a groan, feeling a wetness seep into his chest. He focused once more, this time successfully getting Bakugo with an alchemy circle, and sending him flying towards Todoroki, who easily gliding his hand against Bakugo's chest. Bakugo screeched in agony as the light cracked his chest open. Your eyes widened, and in a last bout of nerves you still had, you shoved past Uraraka. Todoroki was planning for another and more powerful blow, no doubt a finishing one. Bakugo was still up, only through sheer desire to relieve his craving. Midoriya was fighting back, and what appeared to be overwhelming emotions. All three too distracted to see your approach. Grab them by where it's not illuminated. You'll be able to tell right away after forcing their ability on themselves. If they react badly, then you know they are no longer pure. His words shouted through your mind as you grabbed the part in Todoroki's arm where the light stopped glowing. The room fell silent as you shoved the light into his left side, the light absorbing in. It took a moment to react, but when it did, the scream that resounded was enough to make everyone pause. You fell to your knees as Todoroki held onto his bleeding side, the slow healing light seeming to take longer than usual for him. Midoriya and Uraraka were silent and motionless. Kaminari was still unconscious, and Kirishima was fighting off his bleeding, and Bakugo had vanished, using the moment to retreat as to not get killed. He was smart, and would be back when the moment proved in his favor. And you sat there, shaking your head, thinking about how you had reverted, and all thanks to him, and what he had done to everyone who had been in your apartment in the last 5 minutes. He grunted deeply as the white fabric was tightened around his shoulder, the pure color being tainted with a deep blood scarlet as soon as it was wrapped enough around the wound. Midoriya bit his lip harshly, having never expected the gash to be so deep from a mere scratch. Above him, you remained silent, their own wounds being covered by more small band-aids from the vampire who had caused the emerald-haired boy his own injuries. He remained quiet, the situation truly setting in, his gut harshly churning inside of him and making the back of his throat taste foul. You feel it, don't you? You breathe out, harshly tightening the bandage once more, making Midoriya yelp out in pain. Feel what? Midoriya asked, tongue dry and hard to use at his current moment. You knelt downward, harshly pulling Midoriya's ear towards your mouth. Your eyes were dull, but your tongue was sharp and eloquent in the words it was ready to produce. Midoriya attempted to gulp down some relief to his throat, but once again, you left him feeling empty and hollow again. What it feels like to try and kill your best friend. You let go of Midoriya's ear, marching away and going towards Kirishima, who was still pressing his arm to a more than bloody rag. He sighed deeply and shook his head, and you knelt beside him and helped to roll up his sleeve to reveal his wound as well. You'd never think that he was capable of this, huh? The redhead laughed sarcastically. God, I should have known sooner. All the damn signs were there. You pet his head gently, seeing as the male calmed down from the touch. The dog part of his brain always calming down when he was shown any kind of affections and rubs on his head. The werewolf was stressing, but maybe you could at least make him feel a bit calmer with these soft touches. Bakugo is the type to keep to himself, isn't he? You mumbled, seeing as Kirishima would need stitches. Don't blame yourself for his own shortcomings. You can't know every little thing about him. But I should have for this, Kirishima called out, slamming his hand on the coffee table next to the two of you. I've seen this before. Not in Bakugo, luckily, but another vampire. And if he doesn't get what he needs soon, he'll keep getting worse and worse until he physically destroys himself. You sucked in a breath and then exhaled it brokenly. The tales of vampires going without blood, it was a terrible thing. In a desperate attempt to find the one thing that they require to live, they push their bodies beyond their limits for long periods of time. And if they are unable to get the nutrients they so desperately need, then their body fails. And within a matter of minutes, the vampire dies in a painful and withdrawal-like state. Kirishima's arm shook as you prepared the needle to sew up his arm. Your stomach dropped, knowing you had no medical training to do such an action. But it wasn't like you could walk into a hospital with an immortal half-angel, incubus, and werewolf, and expect no questions to be asked. You shook your head slowly, trying to think of some solution, whether to Kirishima's arm, Midoriya's chest, or even Bakugo's craving. Your mind was running fast, the coldness in your toes and fingers making you begin to tremble. The images and sounds of the past becoming louder and louder by the second, and the memories of the voice constantly berating you for being so indecisive and unable to make decisions when it counted. Your fatal flaw was a bad one, and you needed to push through it. You needed to figure out a way to help everyone. Uraraka's voice coaxed you out of your stressed mind, looking up to see her standing in front of you in Kirishima. "What do you want?" you asked, turning your head to the side and refusing to look at the brown-haired girl. Uraraka frowned, though this behavior wasn't entirely unexpected from you. She had lied to you about who she really was and why she truly was around you. And now that her own secret was out in the open, she knew just how betrayed you felt. The life you wanted so desperately to escape was present, even when you didn't realize it. I know you don't want anything to do with me right now. I understand that, but... She exhaled, holding out a hand and gently touching Kirishima's bleeding arm. "But I'm a fairy, and I can heal others." You lifted your head slowly, glancing at her from the side as she looked at you with guilt and begging eyes. She needed to do something. She wanted to do something. The lies had become unraveled and laid bare, and it was obvious that out of the three of them, she was the one feeling the most guilty. So she was trying to make up for it somehow. "Well then," you rose from your spot, making room for her next to Kirishima. "If it makes you feel better, then do what you can to make your own lying self feel good." Uraraka nodded slowly, beginning the ritual to heal wounds. Midoriya, across the room, held back another moan from anger toward himself. This was his fault. Things had gotten out of control because he had allowed things to do so. He was supposed to bring order, but all he instead brought was utter chaos and more pain. Was he really cut out for this? "That's enough," Todoroki spoke, entering the room from the outside patio. "You're letting your own feelings get in the way here." Your lips quivered and you turned to look at your childhood friends. No cut, scrapes, bruises, or sympathy shown. And he dared lecture you on the results. He dared speak to you as if you didn't have any say in the matter. "Look around you, Shoto," you waved. "Midoriya's got a chest wound. Kirishima's arm needs stitches. Kaminari is passed out from a lack of energy. And I'm the target of this entire thing. Meanwhile, you stand there like some higher being who knows better than us." "You need to calm down and listen to me right now," he coaxed you, coming forward and reaching a hand out to you. "Trust me, I know how to deal with the situation." "Trust you?" You swatted his hand away. "You're the one who caused this entire thing. Sure, Bakugo was the one who didn't seek help in his craving, but you're the one who agitated him to the point where he started destroying anything in sight." "He's a menace. I assumed you would have known that." "He's hurting and slowly losing himself." "That's exactly what he deserves for being what he is." You bit your lip harshly. Who was this Todoroki? Where was the kind and compassionate boy from your childhood? This wasn't him. He was much too... Your mother was the same way, wasn't she? Todoroki's eyes widened, a flashing of white light radiating from his right side. He looked at you harshly, bits of emotion finally starting to crack this emotionless front he put on. The memory of his mother, her struggles and actions, and what made her become so filling his mind harshly. Don't you dare bring her into this, he warned you. Threaten me all you like, you breathed out. But I know this isn't you, Shoto. You'd never hurt someone who's hurting themselves. Because you know what it's like, and you have the scar to prove it. I don't need you to remind me. What was it like, Shoto? To have a mother who was forced to give birth to create the greatest opponent against the supernatural world, knowing that you were the closest to what your father wanted after 4 tries. To know that what your father did to you, your siblings, and your mother is what made her fallen in the first place. And then, she scared you, because she couldn't stand the thought of her children not being fallen like her. I told you to stop. His voice choked, the emotions of it all coming back to him harshly from the line you so boldly crossed. And then my father killed her. Did you know that? You breathed out. Deemed a menace to the human world and killed her without a second thought. Your father allowed it to happen, and kept it from you for 18 years. Todoroki was silent, but the intensity of his gaze was more than enough for you to know you had one last thin string left on his emotional hold before he truly lost it and everything he stood for. One more final thing to say, and you had to make sure he got it. I know you've always wanted to be like her, Shoto, but ask yourself if this is what she would have wanted. You hurting people and friends who need your help and support. Would she have wanted you to kill her or save her? Todoroki rushed forward, grabbing you by the wrist and sending beams of light into your skin. His hues twitched with rage, threatening that if you spilled another word, he wouldn't bat an eye and make you feel the pain of your own personal sins. Would she want you to become fallen too? You whispered to him, glancing down at his hand on your skin. Because as far as I know, you are not the Todoroki Shoto I grew up with, and I know your mother would be heartbroken to see her son beginning to lose himself, like she lost herself. His hand shook, eyes widening at your words, the light in his palm slowly fading and dimming as his hold on you loosened significantly. You sighed as he dropped his hand from your wrist and looked directly at his feet below him. His hands felt so cold, so distant and away from what they should feel. How long had they been this way? I'm a disgrace, he mumbled softly. Shoto. Your voice was stern, making the male nervously look up at you. Looking back up at you, he only was able to catch a look at the irritated face of his childhood friend before his face was forcefully turned to the side. A loud, quick, but echoing sound filled the apartment living room as Todoroki's cheek began to tinge with pain. You lowered your hand and let out a breath. Todoroki glanced at you, pieces of red hair pushing his white locks back into their place after such a powerful slap. You looked at him with quivering eyes, and he gulped down the guilt in his throat. Stop letting the words of your parents drive you. Your mother wanted you to make your own life and be happy with the life you create. Just because you lost yourself momentarily doesn't mean you can't get it back. If you're really that upset at your actions of late, then help me and the others get Bakugo back. Then, when he's back to his normal self, you and Midoriya can truly judge him. Until then, show the mercy I know you are capable of giving. You're a good person, Sho. That's why you're my oldest friend. That's why I trust you, but I need you back. Not whoever you've become, okay? Todoroki looked at you, letting the words sink in. He slowly nodded to you and then allowed a small smile to rise to his features. He held out his left hand, ushering you to shake it. You sighed in content, seeing that by some miracle he was coming back. Thank you for reminding me, and thank you for reminding me of my morals. Todoroki spoke, looking toward the others in the room. Now let's think of a way to save that aggressive vampire. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed your time here, please be sure to like the video. If you would care to hear more, please consider subscribing. And farewell for now, my loves.